On behalf of Carolina Breast Friends, welcome to our first virtual session. So thank you all for joining. We're adapting to the times and we're thrilled to have all of you. And I want you to look going forward. We've got a number of virtual sessions over the next several weeks. So you'll be seeing, in fact, support group is the next one. So we have Survivors Night on Tuesday, our regular night, and it will be virtual. So look for that email to come out and the post on the calendar and that type of thing. And please join us. I think we're getting very creative and it's a wonderful way to still stay connected. So on behalf of Carolina Breast Friends, thank you. And this session is going to be wonderful this afternoon. Let me tell you a little bit about Terrie. Terrie is an innovator and a researcher. But beyond that, she's one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. She has got loads of energy, and she is always up for a new challenge. And I love that about her. I will tell you also that Terrie serves on our board of directors for Carolina Breast Friends, and I think we're extremely lucky to have her on our board. She is an entrepreneur. She actually owns her own business, Empower Health America. And you've probably seen some of her posts, but she also does a podcast called Two Scoops, and she may tell you a little bit about that, but it's a really motivational, inspirational podcast that she does with one other person that is also friends of Carolina Breast Friends, and we're very grateful for that. And I've listened in on several of those and really enjoyed them. So, but Terrie's bringing her talents. She really talks about empowering yourself and putting health where it needs to be and managing this new crazy world we're living in. And so I can't think of anybody better to lead our session. Let me tell you a little bit about Terrie. Terrie is an innovator and a researcher. But beyond that, she's one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. She has got loads of energy, and she is always up for a new challenge. And I love that about her. I will tell you also that Terrie serves on our board of directors for Carolina Breast Friends, and I think we're extremely lucky to have her on our board. She is an entrepreneur. She actually owns her own business, Empower Health America, and you've probably seen some of her posts, but she also does a podcast called Two Scoops, and she may tell you a little bit about that, but it's a really motivational, inspirational podcast that she does with one other person that is also friends of Carolina Breast Friends, and we're very grateful for that. And I've listened in on several of those and really enjoyed them. So, but Terrie's bringing her talents. She really talks about empowering yourself and putting health where it needs to be and managing this new crazy world we're living in. And so I can't think of anybody better to lead our session. And so
I'm going to make sure before we blast into this presentation that everybody's got something to write with. Maybe a Sharpie or a pen. Sharpie would be best, but a pen is great. You can have just sheets of paper or a journal. And if you need to go get that, you're not going to miss a whole lot. But I just wanted to have a little bit more interaction. It's a little bit more challenging when we're not physically together, but I'm still going to create these opportunities that allow us to be kind of in community and kind of responding back and forth. And one thing I wanted to also mention, do not fear if you get bounced out of this, you can come back in just like you did originally, and you won't disturb anything. You just come right on back into the meeting. Just make sure that you're muted when you come back in. So I was just going to mention, I found Carolina Breast Friends 2.5 years ago. I participated in a fundraiser called Carolina Breast Friends, a fundraiser that Carolina Breast Friends sponsors called Dancing with the Stars. And so not only did I get to dance and raise money and awareness, but I also got a chance to know the heart of the Pink House and the people that run it, and you guys, the amazing folks that come in. And I just fell in love with the mission and vision. And so I jumped on the board, and I am just so proud to be part of this organization and spending time and energy with you today, because both those are valuable commodities. And I'm just grateful that you are going to let me steer us and guide us for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I hope that you have a really good experience. I am going to do a screen share, and that will allow me to show you the PowerPoint that we're going to use to kind of drive us through. I probably got tiny and my PowerPoint just probably got really big. So I'm still in the screen. And I wanted to give a roadmap. So I love this visual because these are steps in many ways right now into the unknown, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's how can we navigate those steps with great intention? And how can we keep the door open to new possibilities and adapting and just staying open-minded and embracing new possibilities and doing that from a place of abundance rather than fear. And so navigating back into this new normal, how can we do that in the healthiest way possible? So we're going to talk a little bit about well-being. We're going to talk about the impact of stress. I'm sure none of you have felt that lately. The mind-body connection, which is incredibly powerful. We're going to talk about demystifying mindfulness. And a lot of us may have heard a bit about mindfulness this last couple of years. I think it's on every magazine at Harris Teeter on the checkout line. Every time I go, I see another one. And it's a good thing to see. Triggers and resiliency. We'll unpack that a little bit. And then something that I have created, which is kind of a checklist. I think it's easier to follow a process when you know what the process is. And it's called the 4P check-in process. And we're going to land in self-care and compassion because that's a very powerful place to land. So I'm going to start us off right now getting involved. So I'm going to invite everybody to close your eyes. And I know some of you guys are outside and in the comfort of your own home, but I just want you to get settled, get really comfortable. So hands either resting gently in your lap, feet maybe uncrossed so that both feet are grounded. And I just want you to become aware of your breath. It's a great anchor. It helps to pull us in. So just breathing in and breathing out. Noticing the sounds maybe around you, new sounds, as a result of pausing and just activating your sense of being able to listen and hear. Taking breath in and slowly back out. This is available to you 24/7. We're just breathing with a little bit more focus and intention. Deep breathing in and out. So the breath calms the parasympathetic nervous system. It allows us to anchor in the moment and become a little bit more aware. And so you may have thoughts swirling around things that you did this morning or this afternoon, and that's very normal. The mind is very active. But see if you can anchor around what you're processing in this moment. Whatever thoughts land, don't push them out. Rather embrace them, invite them in like a friend. Just noticing, what is my mind telling me? And so this awareness begins to bring us into this space where we can assimilate information. And maybe if you land in a place that is creating anxious thoughts, you can begin to release those thoughts and invite in maybe something powerful like gratitude. I am grateful to have this moment just to breathe, to be outside or grounded in my home, just relaxing. And then I want to encourage you to move from the top of your head, just slowly taking inventory of your body and where you might feel tightness or sensation. Just notice that. Sensation is the language that our body speaks to us in, and it also can inform us. So you might hit a spot around the shoulders, perhaps, where there's some tension, and just see if you can ask the body to let that go. Letting the exhale maybe be a catalyst for releasing. Just noticing, continuing to breathe. I want to invite you to bring your palms open to your heart. Feel the rise and fall of the chest as you continue to breathe. So this sense of touch can also be very calming and very soothing. I want you to listen very, very carefully. And I want you to tune in just a little bit deeper, and I want you to feel the connection to your own heartbeat. So this slow rhythmic breath can help melt distraction away, tension, can help you wake up in the moment connected, noticing, so that you can invite in what you need. And maybe in this moment, it's gratitude. I am grateful. Just taking about 3 more deep breaths. Make them slow. Here's your second one. Inhale and exhale. And this last one I want us to take in together in community. So I want you to take a big breath. Inhale, 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 inhale. Open the mouth. Ha! Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. And then just begin to open your eyes. Free therapy, y'all. One of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, and incredibly simple, but the mind is so active. It really is an art form, learning how to focus and center yourself. So we just went through, that was maybe 3 or 4 minutes of meditation. It can keep you grounded, especially when we're in these moments of high stress times. You're facing a big decision and there's anxiety, or you're in a conversation that's becoming uncomfortable, or you get news that's uncomfortable. How can I just sit and pause and breathe? And we'll do this a couple of more times throughout the session today, but I wanted to maybe get you guys to do a 1 thumb up means you feel good, and a 2 thumbs up, you feel great after that. So 1 thumb, you feel good, 2 thumbs, you feel great. All right, I'm seeing a lot of 2 thumbs. Oh, good, Leslie, Vicky, I'm scrolling to the right. I'm seeing somebody do a virtual thumbs up. I love that. I think that must be Lisa or Diane. And then, oh, good, Kim's got her thumbs up. Caroline, what's happening down there? You got your thumbs up? Oh, 2 thumbs up. Whoop, whoop. All right, wonderful. So I'm going to move us back in, navigating back to the screen share. And I'm going to begin to move us through the presentation a little bit more rapidly, but I still want us to maintain a cadence so that we are able to assimilate everything that's happening. So the next thing, is well-being. So is everybody seeing the screen? Nod your head yes, so I know you're seeing it. Oh, good. You know, I just have to have reinforcement. This is new to me too. So well-being. Everybody has sort of a mental construct of what that means. And maybe it's physical activity, maybe it's eating healthy, maybe it's getting rest, but whatever comes to mind, I want to invite you to broaden that. And I want you to think about well-being in 3 buckets: emotional well-being, mental well-being, and physical well-being. Because all 3 of those components are very important things to process and think about, with the end goal of feeling as a human being healthy, balanced, and happy. And that really is based on what is important to you. And that's going to lead us to the next slide. And it also maybe begs a question: why is my well-being important? Honestly, because the quality of your life depends on it. How you show up for yourself, how you show up for your family, in community, with your coworkers. So your well-being sits at the center of your happiness and the way that you show up for your life and how you live your life and how you impact others. So pretty big reason to think about your well-being. So I'm not going to stay on this slide a long time, but I want to invite you. We sent out 4 attachments, and if you didn't get them, we will absolutely send it out to you. You can just let us know. And there is a life inventory exercise, and you can see by the visual of the circle that there are many dimensions of our lives. And what we often do is we run so fast around that circle that we're not landing in any one dimension to check in. And so the ability to pause and take inventory, for example, some of the icons are pretty self-explanatory. How am I feeling with the way I'm fueling my body? How am I feeling in terms of resting and relaxation, exercise? How do I feel spiritually? How do I feel in my relationships? How do I feel emotionally, mentally? How do I feel in terms of life balance? Do I feel like my home is a sacred place? Do I feel like I have a sense of purpose? So there's a lot of different elements that make up our lives. And so I point this out, and I could spend 2 hours probably talking about this one wheel and taking inventory, but I just wanted to get you to open up your thinking around health and well-being, and to understand the importance of pausing to take inventory, and giving you that tool so that on your own, maybe this weekend, you could sit and say, you know what, I want to figure out where I'm in or out of balance. I want to figure out what might be causing me stress. And by understanding, I have a better chance of making intentional decisions to find balance, to work on stress if there's a certain area of my life that's causing a lot of it. And I'm sure there are, especially under the circumstances. Who knew 3 weeks ago I'd be doing this workshop for you guys today? Virtually, we'd be together in community, although separated physically. But we adapt and we respond and we figure out ways to work around things. And so this virtual connection is still allowing us to be in community, and I'm grateful for that. So this picture, represents a lot of emotions, and we have them, and they're all important to feel and to explore and to experience. And it's just life. We live a life of emotional continuum. It bounces back and forth, high highs and low lows. But one thing that we do know, and it's why I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about stress today, is that World Health Organization last year came out and said, stress is our new epidemic. And you guys might remember probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, obesity was the new epidemic. Stress is now the new, not just in the United States, but global epidemic. That impacts us at a very individual level. And we'll talk about that in a second. But one thing that I wanted to talk about is, we're all dealing with stress. Whether you're a breast cancer survivor or you're going through that journey right now, that's a pretty heavy load to handle. Then you throw life on top of that, and then the circumstances that we're dealing with. So that creates big, big disruption. And disruption creates change. It's like a domino effect. And one thing affects the other, affects the other, affects the other. It's like a chain reaction. So it's very important that we acknowledge that we're probably carrying more than we normally are. Rather than gearing up and zipping up and forging forward and being resilient, and all those things are great, but you can't miss the step of acknowledgement, having awareness and compassion. And also knowing that we don't like change. 80% of the folks out there don't like to change. So if you don't like change, you're not alone, because you're the minority or the majority. So disruption occurs. We all have unique ways of dealing with change and challenge and stress. We all process things differently, and we manage things differently. So I'm going to talk about science for just a second so that you have some framework around what makes us unique. Our DNA makes up about 60% of who we are. We're kind of genetically wired. Our family of origin, who we grew up around, where we grew up, norms, values are formed when we're growing up. How we view the world is often through the lenses of our family of origin. Sprinkle in a lot of DNA, which makes up 60% of kind of how we're put together. And then these high impact life events. And everybody on this call has been in a high impact life event because you've had breast cancer. Most of you, maybe some of you even still in that journey processing through it. That's a lot. That's a lot. And all those things shape the way we view ourselves, how we deal with the world around us. And I just want you to acknowledge that. And it's not one thing. And you're not put into a box and not able to change. It just lets you know the things that influence. So self-awareness, you hear this word EQ a lot lately. It used to be IQ, now it's EQ is the big thing. So self-awareness is just being more aware and awake to your tendencies, how you feel, how you react. So it's self-discovery leads to self-awareness. So this introspection, this ability to look inside yourself and get to know who you are. And when you do that, you gain resiliency because you can begin to be more aware and what I call flex your self-regulation muscles. And especially now more than ever, all of these disruptions, boulders thrown in the middle of the road. How can I reframe my thinking? How can I get around this situation? How can I consider new possibilities? So learning how to self-regulate is really important. This picture may look really familiar. It is a picture of someone that is highly emotive. You may or may not see yourself in that picture, but I often do, and it's usually when I'm not practicing self-care. It's usually when I'm reacting rather than pausing. And she looks kind of angry, but there's all kinds of emotions that she could be feeling. And what happens is we get on this autopilot kind of mentality. And we react and respond almost as if it's automatic. And so in order to change that behavior, we have to first pause and become more aware of it. Notice it's happening and have compassion for ourselves. And if we're triggering with somebody else, maybe have more compassion for them too. And that begins to allow us to move through life with greater intention. So the ability to process, to regulate, and to respond with greater intention. And I'm telling you, it will affect the quality of your life. So the brain, wow, what an incredible machine. It has 82 billion neurons. It runs at 268 miles an hour, which is faster than a NASCAR, actually a Formula race car, even faster. And our brains change and pop and lose focus and jump, bling, bling. You know, we often use that, the squirrel, the bling, about every 3 seconds. So this fast, incredible machine that changes focus every 3 minutes, that also is responsible for scanning for danger. Where is the danger? Where's there a threat? There's a problem over there. I need to solve it. There are people over there. I need to fit in. I need to have a purpose. So the brain is always working. So no wonder we have to be mindful, and we can train the brain. And that is the really cool thing. Stress triggers that speed to crank up for the brain to not function as well. Literally 80% of the blood flow when we're stressed out stops flowing to the frontal cortex, this frontal part of our brain, our lobe. It's called the executive reasoning center. It's where logic, where we can actually look at the pros and cons and look at both sides of things and have a very neutral, very calm, non-emotive decision. When we're in stress mode, it shuts down and it does not focus or function so well. What cranks up is the amygdala, and it starts to go crazy, which elevates our emotions. So good stress can be, it's called eustress, can be good when you've got like a project and you get the butterflies and you get pumped up to get it finished. That's good stress. But the stress I'm talking about is the stress that just lays on you like a heavy blanket, and you get up every day and you feel it, and your mind ruminates those thoughts over and over again. It's in your body. It happens all the time. And maybe it's so normal that you don't even notice it. But that's chronic stress. And that can really damage you mentally, emotionally, and physically. And at the very least, put a lot of stress on those 3 areas of your life. So I want just for a moment for us to think about, all of us on the call, and this is where I'd love for you just to journal for a second and think about when you remember being stressed. And it may be today, it may be 30 minutes ago, or it may be yesterday, how that affected you mentally. And I'm doing this because I just don't want to talk and share as a facilitator. I want you guys engaged in processing the emotions and going through this exercise, kind of simulating it, if you will. So think about that moment that you were stressed. Mine was on a Zoom call when my dog Halo started barking like crazy. He's down there on the floor asleep, thank goodness. But I felt that physical tension come up in my brain. I mean, all the way from my toes, all the way up to my brain, everything got tense. And I emotionally got very upset because it was an important call. And I mentally got very unfocused, and it very much disrupted what I was engaged in. So thank goodness the person on the other end laughed and we're like, it's life. We're quarantined. So this is the reality. We have to pivot and adapt. And my office now is where I do all of my professional calling from. So it is what it is, right? You just go with the flow. So thinking about mentally and emotionally and physically, how did getting stressed impact you? And I've got y'all to the right, so I'm going to look to the right because I can see. Will you raise your hand if y'all are finished, like answering those questions? Just raise like your left hand. See if you people, just keep them up because I'm having to scroll down. And then I have ESP with some of y'all because you're blacked out. I'm just assuming that half of you are raising your hand and the other half is not. So I'll give you another like 30 seconds. How about that? And you can always go back and kind of process this a little bit more. You know, I could start talking about a lot of the negative impacts of stress, but I'm rather going to lean us into the fabulous benefits of mindfulness. I'd rather lean into that abundant place. All right. So before I move us on, I am going to read you something that I think is really important for you to hear. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And we talk about how can I manage my stress. One of the things that you can do to manage stress is to do things that reduce your stress, to be proactive. So we're in a high stress time now. Even more important that I consider doing things proactively so that my stress level is lower. And I want you to, in hearing these, if one or two of them really jumps out at you, I want you to write it down. And you can write it down as I'm going through. You can open your eyes to write. Or if you want to just hold it in your mind and write it afterwards, that's another way to do it. But I want you to open up the ears. Remember, one of the senses is listening, because I really feel like there are some great things here that you could consider doing. And if you're already doing them, just be reinformed or be reassured that you're doing some great self-care work. So take short breaks throughout the day to pause and connect to your breath, just the breathing that we did at the beginning. Practice slowing down. Try the moving slower, talking slower, reacting slower. Don't overschedule. Leave more time between appointments and events. Volunteer for a charity that's important to you. Amen and amen. Get the right amount of sleep, 7 to 8 hours. Keep caffeine to a minimum. Take a mental health day if you need it. And as a matter of fact, take it before you need it. That is a great way to practice self-care. Be active and exercise daily. And that doesn't mean you need to go run a 10K. It means you might just walk around your neighborhood and enjoy being out in nature. Do something creative. Draw, paint, play an instrument, woodworking. Try to set realistic goals for yourself. Often we'll overschedule and we'll have too many expectations on what we can accomplish. And just looking at the to-do list creates anxiety. So just be aware of that. Spend time alone, meditating, in prayer, focusing, finding that anchor, connecting to breath like we did earlier. Those are just different ways that you can consider spending quality time alone. Write down one thing in which you are grateful for each day for a week. And I've encouraged families to do this together. And it's sort of that collective consciousness where family members really, for a week, note things they're grateful for or aha moments. And then the family has a scheduled appointment maybe on Sunday night, and you unpack what you've felt that week and you share it with one another. It's a great way to create sense of community. Create a peaceful place in your home. Maybe it's a chair, maybe it's a room, but find a tranquil place where you can go and actually pause and unplug. And when you look around, you see things that make you feel good. Maybe there's art on the wall or a candle or a picture. I lost my mom last year, and so I have pictures of her in my house, and they bring me great joy. Great joy. Don't jump to negative conclusions. Pause and consider the positive scenario. You talk about revving up stress. When we jump to an unknown with a definitive, I know what they're thinking, or I know the story, you might not. So pause and consider that there could be another scenario. Identify your stress triggers and develop healthy coping skills. And that's a little bit of what we're doing today. Practice positive self-talk when dealing with stressful situations. Going back to the don't assume, because often we can have this internal conversation that's not very supportive. It's not very compassionate. And the person that we hear the most in our entire lives is our own voice. So it's really important that that person is kind, that that dialogue is empowering. Limit time with people or situations that cause you stress. Yes, you probably know who they are, and it doesn't mean you have to banish them, but maybe you limit your time with them. Spend time in community connecting with like-minded people like we're doing today. Just a different type of community, but nonetheless, we're together sharing an experience. Set healthy boundaries at work, home, and in life. That would be another hour session. But we all know the importance of boundaries. Pet an animal or hug someone for 20 minutes. And you may have seen, if you were looking at my little bitty picture, my cat Tiber jumped up, and he gets really curious when I'm at my desk for a while. Hugging people and hugging animals is very cathartic. And making someone smile by smiling yourself is about the cheapest form of therapy. So make sure that you're mindful to be doing things that make you smile. Watch a funny movie. And if you're struggling, ask for help. Don't struggle. Ask for help. Spend time in nature. Put your cell phones down. Look up and practice being present in the moment. Light some candles. Put on some calm music. Get in a bubble bath. Dim the lights. Do something for you. Have a conversation with someone about a topic you both enjoy. I light up when I talk about mindfulness and meditation and yoga and travel. Those things light me up. What lights you up? Have conversations. Create energy around those types of conversations with people that share similar interests. Self-care is doing anything that makes you feel good, that is self-focused. Anything. So you just got to be aware of what that is and do more of it. And I say this a lot. Sometimes the best way to reduce stress is to literally do nothing and just be. Just be. And make sure, because I think we probably got a little bit more time on our hands, make sure you're scheduling fun on your to-do list, like literally fun activity, soulful activity, self-care activity. Make sure that's landing on your to-do list at least once a day. So that was an action-packed 30 things to think about. So I hope that there was maybe one or two that just jumped out at you and you're like, wow, I haven't done that in a while. I bet you that would bring me great joy. Or maybe as I was going through, you were identifying, going, I do that, I do that, I do that. Well, keep doing it, right? And if you find yourself depleted and you're not doing any of them, just pick one or two. Don't add stress to do 9 or 10 of them. Just pick a couple of them. And I'm going to do another kind of little show of hands. How many of you did that really wake up your creativity in terms of things that you can do to practice self-care and to reduce stress? Raise your hand if that kind of opened up your mind to different ways of spending your time, right? So time and energy. I see all the hands going up. That makes me happy. There's Beth. I see Beth in the house. So time and energy are valuable commodities, and how you spend your time and who you spend it with defines your life. So pretty important thing to think about. I'm going to keep moving us. I'm going to go back to my screen share, and I'm going to keep scooting us along. And next, we're moving into mindfulness, my favorite subject. So what is mindfulness? Well, we've been doing it. We've been closing our eyes. We've been connecting into the moment. We have been awake and aware to what we're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, just taking that inventory, which is so incredibly important. And the cool thing with mindfulness is it says negative thoughts, I hear you, but I choose to have compassion. I choose to have compassion. Doesn't mean I'm afraid of you, but I might step in and befriend you, because fear needs compassion, right? Anxiety needs compassion. So how can we meet ourselves with love and kindness? That is mindfulness. And mindfulness is an art of being awake in everything that you do in life. You hear people talking about mindful eating. You hear people talking about meditating and being mindful. You hear people talking about exercising and being mindful because they're physically connected to the sensations in their bodies, which helps to keep us very present, which is kind of a great thing when you're exercising, to just sort of notice how the body feels, what the language of your body is saying in the form of sensation. So why is it important? Because guess what? It will help you de-stress. It will improve the quality of your life. It will help you become more creative. It will help you focus more. It will improve your productivity. It boosts your immune system. It will help you with relationships. It will help you become more self-aware. And bundled underneath that is self-control. It helps with addiction. It actually has a lot of positive impact, and PTSD as well. It helps with depression, insomnia, anxiety, blood pressure. The list really does go on and on and on. So how do we do it? Well, we stay more conscious, more aware, more awake, more in tune with our bodies, our minds, our emotion, and we pause more. And I'm going to walk us through a wake up the senses exercise, which I'm going to run through fairly swiftly, but I think definitely worth having you land here for a moment, because we all have all of our senses. I hope, because they're all so beautiful. It's just how much do we tap into them? And by tapping into them, they can be a great anchor. And the anchor is what can bring us into this state of awareness, which is mindfulness. So sight, for example, when we think about sight, when we see something beautiful, a sunset, the ocean, it kind of anchors us in that moment. Art, I talked about seeing my mom's picture. I have a favorite picture in my kitchen, and I look at it and it brings me into that moment. It reminds me of how amazing our relationship was. But what can you look at? How can you bring me beauty in? We bring in 80% of the information visually. We're very visual people. So what we look at matters. Touch, what we touch. When we touched our hearts earlier, we felt our own heartbeat. We hugged our body. We felt that connection, that visceral connection, that sense of touch. When we hug somebody else, we pet an animal, it brings us into the moment. Music, soothing for the soul. I've heard birds louder than I've ever heard them before, because I've been more present and I've been home more in front of my big window, which lets that beautiful sound in. The ocean, white noise, machines that help us calm. So when we think about listening, we do bring a vibration into the body. So if you heard a jackhammer, probably not the most calming noise, but if we put on classical music, much more soothing for the soul. So it impacts our parasympathetic nervous system. So it literally does calm our central nervous system. Smell, what do you smell that evokes emotion? Roses. Every time I smell cut grass, I think about high school. And it reminds me, and that's a great memory for me. But when you smell something, and often you probably had people tell you to calm, to smell lavender, maybe to get an eye patch that's got lavender in it, to put lavender in your bath salts. Peppermint is another good, it's more of an energizing. Citrus, So smells do evoke emotion and pull us into the moment. Taste, speaking of citrus, we can eat more mindfully, being aware of what we're eating and feeling it, nourishing our bodies. Often we eat on autopilot and we're not really fueling for optimal performance. We're just fueling out of sometimes this almost autopilot. And often we fuel in inappropriate ways, maybe with alcohol, maybe with not eating the healthiest stuff. And give yourself compassion, but just know that we're not soothing the soul, we're numbing out. So how can you be more mindful about how you choose and what you choose to put into your body? Because it really does impact everything, physically, emotionally, and mentally. So the senses are powerful. 4P check-in. This is my checklist because I think it's really hard to follow a roadmap if you don't have one. So this is something I want you to hang on to, and it's something I think you can pull out. And it's a great tool if you find yourself getting anxious or dealing with stress, as we are all feeling. News that might trigger you. How can I pause? And we've talked about that a lot today. How can I pause, stop, breathe? How can I connect and drop into my body? How can I feel connection emotionally, physically, mentally, the sensations in my body, to notice my thought? Is what I'm hearing myself say true? Or do I process a little bit longer and I consider other possibilities? Maybe that story I'm telling myself is not the right one. So what we've had to do a lot is pivot, because as we knew life 3 weeks ago does not exist today. And that's this beautiful thing about the human spirit, is we have this capacity to pivot, to get creative. And there might be a boulder in the middle of the road. I might not be able to push it out of the way, but I might be able to go around it. So how can I reframe my thinking and look at new ways of doing things, creating new possibilities? I mean, I'll just say this real quick. I mean, Lynn and I were talking the other day, and, you know, we want to grow the pink house, and setting up brick and mortar all over the world is very expensive. So we're thinking, wow, isn't this fabulous that we've been able to, through this situation, create another way to communicate with you guys, to reach an audience. Although virtual, we're still connected. So what a powerful gift it's been to us to open our eyes to new possibilities. So that's an example of pivoting, finding a healthy new normal. And then once we go through our checklist, then I do truly think we can proceed in all decisions and all actions with greater intention. And I love my little koala bear because I love pictures. And I keep saying the quality of your life depends on it, because your self-care and your habits, how you spend your time and energy, what you tell yourself, the time you spend recharging, all of that impacts the quality of your life and the relationships that you have. I did 12 more healthy habits. I'm going to blow through them quickly. You've got a handout on them, and then we're going to go into some breakout groups. So number 1, stay connected. Exactly what we're doing right now. Although you're quarantined, stay virtually connected in community. There's power in community. There's safety, trust. We feel more at ease and at peace when we're surrounded by like-minded people. Maintain a healthy routine. Boy, mine bounced all over the place for about a week until I could get my equilibrium back. But I'm eating breakfast and lunch and dinner, and I'm exercising, and I'm getting my work scheduled, and I'm creating a routine for myself. And I think most of you have family. Create a routine for your family. Everybody in your household needs stability, because creating a routine creates stability in your mind, emotional stability, which also affects physical stability. All important. Get outside in the sunshine 2.5 hours a week. That is what is recommended. Get out and walk with your family. Get vitamin D, soak it in. Also, our mind likes the expansionness of being outside, so it's very cathartic to actually spend time in nature. A lot of different reasons. Show compassion to yourself and others. Practice self-care. That bubble bath, I love bubble baths. Whatever it means to you, whatever fills you up, do more of it. Be mindful. Eat healthy. Don't burn a line between your living room and the kitchen to that refrigerator. Be aware. It's close in proximity, but it doesn't mean you need to keep going back and forth. So be aware of your eating. Exercise, get rest. Your mind and body cannot heal and rebound or recharge unless you're sleeping. So make sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours if you can. Thank people on the front lines. That's a healthy habit, right? Volunteer, give back. A lot of people keeping this world moving, and so thank them. Stay grounded in gratitude. I think the greatest form of self-care or medicine we can give us is to land in gratitude. It is the accelerator pedal that we should all press heavier on because it leads to great things. It leads to abundance. So make sure if you find yourself moving to that place of deficit, lean yourself back to abundance. And if you can't get there by yourself, call a friend, reach out. Don't try to do this alone. Reach out. Help somebody smile every single day. And if you can make them laugh, even better. Because if they're laughing and smiling, you are too. So I'm doing a time check. And I'm going to put us, Lynn, I think I'm going to put us still into the small groups, but I'm just going to make it 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to shift it up just a little bit because I want to create a level of time integrity. I know we started late, so we have a little bit of flex on the back end, but I still want to keep us on the train tracks. So this is one of the powerful questions that you can potentially answer because you're going to have 3 choices. I love choices because everybody processes different. We should all pick the path that feels right for us. So this powerful combination, how can I have compassion and courage at the same time? So this is the way the small groups are going to work. We are literally going to break out into virtual breakout groups. And you're going to have a pregnant pause that might feel very scary if you've ever done this before. It takes about 30 seconds before you land in your group. And so what Lynn's going to do, not yet, but what Lynn will do is she will move you into breakout groups, and you'll probably be in groups of 5 or 6. Now, this is where ears on, right? Because I don't want y'all to get in these breakout groups and not be able to ask questions. So in the small groups, I want you to answer one of the top 3 questions. You can choose, have your group select. So this little bit team building here. Y'all land on one question, and I want you to spend 15 minutes thinking about that one question. I want you to assign somebody that's going to write down what you're saying so that they can be your collective consciousness when they come back in. They will be the voice of your group. So I'm just going to read them out loud. You can actually see them, but I just want to make sure you can choose. How can you have compassion and courage at the same time? That's one of the questions. And you've probably all been navigating that this last 3 weeks. The second option, remember we're only picking one, is what has helped me adapt or pivot over the last 3 weeks in particular. And the third one, and remember you only get to pick one, how can the 4 P's, pause, process, pivot, and proceed, help me in my life? Help me in my life. And this one at the bottom, I'm not sure that we'll have time to talk about it, but I want you to, in the group, kind of declare, because when we write things down and then we declare it through our voice, that gives power to it. And it helps us to move it into action faster. So I would love for you to declare that I am going to walk outside 3 days a week, whatever it is that's going to allow you to practice more self-care. And just pick one, just one thing that you think you would love to do because you know the quality of your life depends on it. So Lynn is I'm going to bring myself out of this mode, and Lynn is going to take us into these chat rooms. Do not fear. If you get bounced out for whatever reason, just come back into the meeting like you normally would. And Lynn, I'm thinking we'll go for 15 minutes.
Okay. I have just unmuted everyone.
And so I know for the purpose of the recording of this session that this is going to leave a pregnant pause. And so our recommendation to you, if you're listening to this, is number one, we hope you're enjoying it. And the other thing is we'd invite you to take this same 15 minutes and maybe journal one of the 3 questions that really resonated for you. How can you have compassion and courage at the same time? What has helped you adapt and pivot?
I don't know
or
whether Kathy Goodman or Natalie Cordis want to join, but they have not joined a room.
so let's take them off mute for a second and we can talk to
Well,
them.
they should be off of it. Well,
Okay, so Kathy and
on
Natalie, I think you have to join, you have to select the join button. So if that did not pop up, don't worry about it.
And she may have needed to take a break, and Kathy may have needed to too, and that's so.
True.
The rest of them should be in a room.
Yeah, so if y'all are hearing Kathy and Natalie this, and you want to just do this on your own, it's a great exercise. It's introspection, and it's such a healthy thing to do. We just don't really spend enough time checking in and processing how we're feeling or thinking. So feel free to do that. And back to the folks that might be watching this as a video recording, encourage you to do the same thing. And the fourth question is an important one because I'd like for us to have a call to action when we leave the call today, which gives us a compass, something to point towards, a goal I will commit to doing. And when we do that, there's a much higher probability of actually doing it. So there you go. The spokesperson for group number 1. Who is that?
Leslie.
I wrote everything down.
Does not surprise me, Leslie. All right, so this is the deal, Leslie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You're loud and clear.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'll go quickly so that everybody will have a chance. But
all right. So let me set up the ground rules real quick. All right, just so we all know where we're going. So just like any meeting, we want to hold sacred space for Leslie. She's talking, so we want to give her our undivided attention because this is where some magic stuff can happen because you will hear your story and what she's sharing. So we're going to be deep and brief just because we probably have 5 groups and we want to get to everybody. So I'm thinking, Leslie, like 3-4 minutes, the highlights that really resonated out of your group.
Okay. One thing was that we felt like we needed structure in our day, that we needed to give ourselves a schedule, because if we just left it flexible every day, we would not get anything accomplished. So I thought that was a really good point, that everybody, if they don't have structure yet after being quarantined for 2 or 3 weeks, they might want to think about, developing a structure. Loretta shared that she's a kindergarten teacher, and she misses her kids, and she was able to see some of them online today on a Zoom presentation. She's also homeschooling her older children, which is stressful because, that's a new addition to all of her other responsibilities. So she finds pause in getting up earlier than everybody else in her family. That gives her time for herself to have some coffee and to read a little bit, and she does that for herself. So I thought that was very good advice. Mm-hmm. Beth was talking about how we all feel dread during this time of the coronavirus. We don't know what's real and what to expect because we've never experienced this before. And so after she processes those thoughts, then she can pivot and feel better about things and have a positive start down the road once she's, processed all of her anxiety and the thoughts that we're all feeling. So I thought that was good because we all share exactly what she was talking about. Another one of our participants agreed that it's important to keep a routine. Betty Lynn and I were both talking about the fact that sometimes we just need to skip the nightly news because it's just too much bad information, and it makes my stomach hurt. So that's one thing that we were talking about. And she said that she feels that she has not paused enough because she's really motivated to declutter, and she's been working hard around the house, and that can feel overwhelming and make her exhausted at the end of the day. So she is trying to be still and sit down for at least 30 minutes in the morning and the evening and just take that time for herself. And Faye teaches online, so she is not having to worry about homeschooling because her online teaching is something that she's been used to doing anyway. So she's fortunate that she has not had to add any added responsibilities to what she's already been doing. And Kim Nobles is meditating and working on her breathing. That's what she's doing for pausing, but she doesn't feel like she's moved into the processing and the pivoting yet. And we talked about how that all really is a process. It takes time to kind of get to those other steps, but that it's good that she's taking time to pause. And Lisa was just trying to start talking as we came back to the group, and she has hugged a tree, and that's
earthing and grounding.
That's important for both her and the tree. And and there are times when she feels alone, like we all do during this time. So that's kind of a brief run through of everyone's comments.
That was excellent. And I'm capturing some of this, and I plan on doing a recap so that I can share backwards to the group. So if you see me writing, I'm very engaged. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss things. All right, so this is when I will open it up to the floor. Just be aware of the cross-talking, and I'll try to monitor it a little bit, because I really would love to hear, especially if there was anybody else that was not represented and you have something you'd like to share. I would really like to open it up. And I'm going to put us in gallery view so that we can see each other even better. So anything resonate for the group that Leslie shared that you would love to add on to? Please feel free to share. This is that dreaded pregnant pause. As a facilitator, you're not supposed to jump in. You're supposed to hold it just in case. I'll say the most poignant thing ever, and I think Caroline is about to say it.
Well, actually, Caroline's daughter, this is her iPad, so my name is Tricia.
I love it. Okay.
I was going with it anyway. I'll tell you, one of the things when you were giving the list, you had said be creative, be active, volunteer on that list. One of the things that I'm trying to do is extend myself and others more grace, because this is uncharted waters here. So Mom doesn't always know what to make for the 18th meal of the day, if you know what I mean. And, homeschooling is new to us, or just being away from our friends and family. So mess up, extend ourselves some more. It's okay. We're figuring out this as we go along. So we all are doing that for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have had that happen with us today. I mean, we don't have all the technology perfectly fine-tuned, and you just give more compassion and more grace, and that just helps everybody be at more ease. And I really appreciate you saying that, because compassion really does sit in the center of mindfulness and self-care. And it's often the last thing we think about when we're stressed out and we're rushing, or we want something to work and it's not working. We tend to get anxious, and then the brain starts to fire the amygdala, and that just revs up everything. And so if we can just breathe and have compassion and grace, that can help ground us. Grateful that we can be in community, right? Would be better if we were in person and we could hug, but grateful that we can actually pivot and be in community in a different way. So anybody else have some final thoughts?
Well, this is Kathy. I just want to say, Vicki, you are my new hero. Yeah. And I love hearing your story. But for me, I knew I had to get away from the news. It was just depressing me and scaring me. And my big pivot was, I have got to go somewhere that will offer me nature, to get out in nature. I love being out in nature and to be with family. So I live alone in Charlotte, so I left Charlotte and came to the beach where my sister and her husband live, and we're out and we're very active, playing golf, going cycling, going on long walks with our dogs. I love, Terrie, you're in the 12 you listed your list of 12
just healthy habits.
Your pets. Hugging your pets is huge in my life too. And we have 4 dogs in the house now, and just being with family and cooking, keeping your mind off of how many more cases of COVID-19 are positive for New York, New Jersey, and that having hope. I'm also meditating. That is very good for me to get my mind in a place of hope, and there's strength in that hope. So, it's amazing what I am seeing for these women. Today on this call, I have loved making that connection with everybody. So thank you, Terrie, for bringing this forward.
Oh, thank you. Thank all of you. I mean, it's the collective effort of everybody being in community together and really this was the first official Zoom session that the Pink House has ever done. And, the first time you do anything, that change is like, whoa, but you get through it and you kind of get exhilarated. It's like you go down that ski slope and you're like, I did it. And it kind of makes you happy. So I'm going to recap just a couple of things, and I've got 2 slides that'll go fast because I know we're probably ready to get outside because it looks like it might rain, y'all, so I'll get y'all finished so you maybe get out there before it does. So a couple of things I heard you guys say is the importance of structure, and I think that's very important. There's stability in structure. There is that familiarity and routine, and that does create a sense of calmness. So I think spot on. A lot of you guys mentioned that. Leveraging this technology to stay connected. I know grandkids and kids, you're not able to touch them, but there is something about the ability to see someone's face, and you can read emotion and you can see expression when you're doing these Zoom calls. Again, you can't hug, but it's the best thing, short of that, right? The other is what Beth said. When you start to feel that rumination of thought and that dread, how can I pause and sort of process and keep myself from running down that rabbit trail in thinking? So like reel her back in, and then how can I try to process with more clarity? And then how can that then move me into greater intention? And it's hard to move straight to greater intention without going through those steps, right? So good Lord, the news is good, but moderation, 80-20 rule, just like anything. Eat some cake, but don't eat it all the time. Mm-hmm. We are very visual and audio, what's the word? Somebody give it to me.
We're
auditory. Yes, that's the word. Sometimes they just run away from my brain. So that lets us know if we're watching or bringing in that kind of information through sound and sight, that is moving through us energetically. And if that's what we're playing over and over and over again, guess where that sets our mind? Right into that pattern of thought. So I'm kind of have this mantra of be informed, but don't live in fear, and don't get stuck in the news, go outside. And I kind of look at it once a day max. And one thing we all have to be very, very mindful of is the CDC, the World Health Organization, are 2 very good resources. Also, the New York Times is putting out every morning kind of an update, and I use that because that's factual. That's a resource that is kind of fact-based. And then we take in all this other information from friends and social media and the TV, radio. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways in which we bring in information, and it's kind of like coffee and water. Those 2 things go together to make the coffee, but there's got to be a filter, and that's what we have the responsibility of doing, is filtering the information out so that when we do speak about it or we do share forward what we're hearing, it too is greater intention, kind of the pause, process, pivot, and proceed. So just think about that. And you mentioned about just not getting locked into the news, and I could certainly encourage that for sure. The grace and compassion, Caroline, I think you shared that. Wow. Just let that ring in your ears and throw gratitude in there. And that's a triple threat, right? Vicki from UNCG, girl, I'm so in awe of your tenacity. And look at you giving back to these kids and mentoring to them. I mean, what better thing to do? If I hadn't hit you on the top of the head with the word pause, I'm gonna do it one more time, because this is the way you move people's mindset, is you tell them the same thing multiple different ways and you hope it resonates, and you leave with one thing. Just know that there's tremendous power in the pause. And I think about it as letting the pause is that bridge between thought, emotion, and action. And I put the word intentional action because I do think that it allows us to have a better shot at being more intentional. Pause to be present. Pause to connect, Pause to be mindful. Pause to be mindfulness. That's interesting. Typo. Pause and notice. Perfection is an illusion. Pause if triggered. Pause before reacting. Pause to seek the truth. Pause before you proceed. Pause and practice self-care. Pause and have compassion for yourself and others, because the quality of your life really does depend on it. So I'm going to have everybody close your eyes for the last and final time. Don't go to sleep. Practice your mindfulness. Be fully present in the moment. And I'm going to read something that I wrote, because I think it's very much what we are all dealing with today is lots of change, lots of uncertainty, lots of unknowns. We're having to adapt, and we're having to really walk in to places that maybe we've never thought we'd walk into before. But I just want to have everybody, as you're closing your eyes, to just breathe and just notice first how resilient you've been over the last 3 weeks. The things that you've done that you never thought you would be able to do. The things that you've accomplished in different ways because you were creative enough to pivot. That is powerful, powerful stuff. And sometimes I think we don't slow down to give ourselves credit for all the great work we've already done, because you'll do nothing but build stronger resiliency muscles as a result of where you've already been. So keep your breath on and your ears open. And I want you to think about change. Embracing change requires being open-minded and awake to new possibilities, to have the capacity to see beyond the obvious and the desire and courage to walk into the unknown. Change requires letting go of the familiar, stepping beyond what is comfortable, and trusting yourself and the process. And it certainly does help you open up to new possibilities. So change really can be a magical place if we just shift our thinking. Breathing in and out, just a couple of more deep breaths, and just noticing what you're feeling in this moment. Whatever it is, let it register. Don't run past it. Don't let your mind move to the next to-do list, but really be in this moment, in this moment. Just noticing. And then just take your hands to your heart one more time and just gently touch your own heart. Very self-soothing to touch your own heart, to feel your own heartbeat, and to feel your breath as the chest rises and falls. Compassion. Compassion grounded in gratitude. Courage fueled by compassion, grounded in gratitude. So my wish for you is that you move through these uncharted waters, not armored up, but rather open to new possibilities. But every step of the way, notice how you are doing, and have compassion. Taking care of yourself will allow you to take care of others. And your life is important, and the quality of your life depends on it. So I am just beyond words excited and moved by this experience of sharing this session. It's a new session for me. I've never put together the information quite structured this way. And, it required a pivot. I mean, I normally talk about stress and things when there's really nothing catastrophic going on. But this makes it very real. And so there's a greater level of sensitivity which needs to be taken when talking about a topic that we're all dealing with. So I hope that I guided you through in a very delicate way, because that was my intention. And I just feel grateful that you guys allowed me into your homes. You didn't get to see my fur babies. Sometimes they're wandering behind me. And I just decided I wasn't going to quarantine them because they get very unruly. They bark and scratch. So I just all right, I'm going to go with the flow. So you guys, we went over, and thank you for allowing us to go over. I'm not bouncing off the phone immediately or off the call. So if you want to stay and chat for a little while, I'm here. I have nothing else to do. Maybe a glass of Prosecco in about 2 hours, but right now, nothing else to do. And so I don't want to hold you hostage. If you did not get the handouts, let the Pink House know, because we want to get them to you. They will support a lot of the information that was shared today. If you have ideas or thoughts, you're our client. You're the most important person to us, and this is why we do what we do. So let us know what you need more of, less of, and we'll try to do the best job to deliver it, because it really matters. Y'all matter to us. So thank y'all. I will do the namaste. This is my new handshake now.
Terrie, a huge thank you to you. I think we would all give thumbs up, a big, virtual hug. So thank you. I think it was great. We really enjoyed it.